some very good friends of mine have quit speaking to me because there's judgment around doing porn or doing sex work. They picked the wrong son because their son, his name is Lance Charger, and he's a gay porn actor, and he's fucking on the internet.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Hot Sandwich, the podcast about sex workers and sex industry. Today with me, I have a wonderful guest, Lance Charger. Hello, Lance.
Hey, how are you guys?
Thank you for being here. I'm very happy you're here. Before starting, I asked to everybody this question just to break the ice. Tell us where we can find you on the social media.
My Twitter is Lance Charger OFC. My Instagram is Salty Silver Fox _3, and then you can find me on Just for Fans and OnlyFans, which is just Lance Charger. So
it's funny because you have like an _3 on Instagram. There are like an _2, _1.
That's because they keep deleting my account.
Okay.
Apparently, I'm too hot for Instagram, so they're deleting me.
How did you start in the porn industry?
I had an Instagram account when the pandemic first hit. I never really paid much attention to Instagram, so I had about 2,000 followers. And I just started posting selfies of myself all around my apartment because, you know, what else are you going to do? And I got about 33,000 followers just in a few months. I started getting some influencer contracts and was super excited. And I woke up one day and my account was gone. Basically, they just messaged me back and said that the account was taken down due to inappropriate content. Which was frustrating because there was no discussion and I was losing money. I was losing income because, you know, when you have no followers, nobody thinks you're an influencer anymore. So, and some guy messaged me on Facebook and said, you know, I think you're wasting your time on Instagram. I think you should be monetizing what you have. So why don't you start a Twitter account? And, you know, to be honest, I didn't even know porn actors were promoting themselves on Twitter at the time. I had a stage name already from many, many years ago. I was playing a drinking game and some guys asked me what my porn name was, and I had no idea. So they said in this particular case, it was my first boyfriend and my high school mascot. And I was like, oh, that's Lance Charger. I'm like, that's fucking great. I'm going to hang on to that. So like, you know, almost 30 years later, it just still happened to be in the back of my mind. So that's how Lance was born. And I started the Twitter account. Very quickly, I started getting messages from studios asking me if I wanted to shoot and had no idea what I was doing. And this is something I've wanted to do for such a long time. You know, as a young kid, as a young gay kid growing up in a very Republican conservative area of Orange County here in Southern California, you know, I would see porn actors and porn and think, wow, these guys literally have everything. Like they're celebrities in their own right. Like it was just this whole like iconic thing that you sort of stick in the back of your head and think, if only. So to be 50 years old and have people showing an interest in me at that level and remembering how I felt about it back then was pretty awesome.
You're quite brandly new in the industry.
Yeah, it's been almost a year and a half. Next month, it'll be a year and a half. I started last June.
At the moment is your main income. Okay.
Yeah, I was, so I've been a creative and marketing director in to television and feature films and then the beauty space for over 20 years now. Very soon after we went into lockdown, the company realized they were going to have to do some cutbacks. And in that, I lost my position. With studio work and fan content, I thought, I think I can make this work. I'm gonna just try this for the time being. I've been able to sustain myself.
So if somebody will approach your old regular job, would you prefer to go back or would you stay where you are now?
I miss running teams in the creative and marketing space. I really do. I've given a lot of thought to segueing those skills into the business, into the porn industry. I'm just not sure at this point. I definitely would like to go back to work. So I'm just sort of kind of weighing the pros and cons of.
You pretty much start your fan page and your studio after you lost your job. There were no colleagues that knew that actually you're doing this stuff.
Right.
Or probably there are some kind of friction on this, or there are some problem?
You know, most of the people who found out, mostly it's guys jacking off to porn, and I come up, a video of mine comes up, and I'll get a message, and people are pretty shocked. Some very good friends of mine have quit speaking to me because there's judgment around doing porn or doing sex work. They just haven't ever had the courage to speak to me about why they quit talking to me, because I would also love to know. And my philosophy is, you know, if that's how they feel, then there's really not any room in my life for them anyway. So it's perfectly fine. And I'm open to any kind of questions. Anyone that I know, even people I don't know, can pretty much ask me anything. I'm usually a pretty open book. So I was a little surprised that it went that route. And then you also have this whole other set of people, like a guy who worked for me, found me and asked me if he could come over and play. Now that I see her in porn, he goes, let's get together and play. And we did, and it was super hot. There's a lot of stigma around sex work, especially in this country. But there's this stigma here that if you do it, you're somehow less than the rest of society, or something's wrong with you, or you're destitute, or you're a drug addict. It's interesting also for me to have been working with celebrities my entire life, setting up their interviews and walking them down red carpets, to being on the opposite side. You're in a working class that people despise and don't want around, and do everything they can to try and cut you down.
It's interesting and ironic because I'm quite sure they are the first one that watch porn.
When people call me out because they found me on Pornhub or they found me on the internet, my first question is like, you found me, you were there.
Yeah.
So, right? You were there, you were participating. So why is it such a big deal? This particular topic in this country brings out the hypocrite in so many people.
Definitely, I can say that being a sex worker affect your social life and your...
My whole life has always been work first. Work was always how I created value for myself. It's how I felt like I was contributing. I was always striving to be better and the best, working hard and paying off. And I treat this business the exact same way. This is work and balancing fan content, studio work, escorting clients, massage clients. There's not a whole lot of time left for anything else. And there's not a whole ton of room in my life for socializing and dating. And I also find that I don't have enough sex without a camera in the room. But when there's not a camera in the room, it's just a whole different dynamic. You get to delve a lot deeper into that connection. So,
do you still enjoy sex if it's not work related?
I do a lot, like a lot. Yeah, it's just I wish I did it more.
When actually you having sex out of work, there is some kind of thinking about, oh, I should record this or something, like, or just like, no, it's like work is work, so it's done, and after is like, I don't think about that.
What happens is somebody will approach me, or I'll see somebody online, or I mean, I've met like 5 really hot, amazingly fun guys who just were walking by my apartment, and I ran out on my balcony and was like, hey. But it's usually the other person who says, I don't film. Because I will always first think we should film this. And I get a lot of guys who say, look, I don't film. Some of them even have Twitter accounts, but they're not showing their faces and they don't film. And that's how I end up in those situations most times.
Do you think being in the sex industry change a little bit your behavior or personality?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more aggressive with guys than I used to be.
Okay.
I find the funniest stuff coming out of my mouth that I can't believe I said. I was walking, seriously, I was walking my dog and there was a kid walking by, probably in his early 20s, and he was just so sexy. And I said hello, and we started chatting, and I said, do you walk by my apartment a lot to work, or are you just getting exercise? And he said, oh, I work over here. And I said, oh, damn. I said, because I was gonna say, if you're just out getting your exercise, you should just come to my building and we can get some exercise in my bedroom. And as it came out of my mouth, I felt like such an old man, like Lex, right? And he kind of made a face like, okay, and walked away. I was like, fuck, I never would have said that like a year and a half ago. So
what's the difference for you, the biggest difference, or in general, what are the difference between a studio, working in a studio, or just like a fan page?
Fan content's easy. Someone reaches out to me and wants to film, or I reach out to somebody. You schedule a time, you meet up at someone's house, you set up the cameras. I have an incredible video guy. His name is Norbert. He shoots almost everything I do, and I cannot say enough amazing things about his work. His work ethic, it's almost like he's not there. He edits everything for me. He cuts trailers. So I get a huge package full of content, and his rate is really competitive. So that makes it really super easy for me. Come over, you start making out, you rip off each other's clothes, you fuck, and everyone comes, and then you turn off the camera. Studio work is a completely different animal. When I get a script, I get my friend Chris and we run lines until I have the script completely memorized. I work really hard on character because that's super important to me. I try to show up early on location. Try to be ready for anything. We have a great scene, but I've got a lot of starts and stops. There's a lot of freeze while they move the camera to underneath angles or overhead angles or bringing in for close-ups. A lot of times when you're on set, it takes a long time for someone to come, or if somebody doesn't come at all. You're on a location, you have a bunch of people in the room. It's fun work and I love it, but it's a lot more involved. The reason I like studio work so much is because I've spent my whole career working in film and television. So I've been on sets my whole life, basically.
Do you still think studios are a thing?
I do. Some of these studios have really big budgets and they have like big films. Like I did a 2-day feature film for Icon Mail right when I first started. There was like 10 models involved across 2 days. There was like a 30-page script. I had like 7 wardrobe changes. We were on a horse ranch, so we were working with horses. It was pretty spectacular. But I spent 2 weeks researching that character and getting ready for that role. I think there's a place for studio work for sure. I don't think it will ever go away. Studios have become marginalized because of fan content. It's harder for them to make money. It's harder for them to pay models what they're worth. You give up a lot to do a studio shot scene. The funny thing about my situation is there's 2 things that my fans don't love. They don't love professional photography of me, and they don't love studio work that I do. What they want to see is photos that I take of myself, and they want to see just me fucking and getting fucked on camera. But I'm just a sucker for studio work. I think it's so fun. Someone calls, I'll typically say yes, even if it becomes detrimental to me financially.
This is just for fun, definitely. Do you ever Google yourself or your name?
I have a half brother that the family doesn't speak to anymore. I was in Vegas on a kink.com shoot. So I was completely clad in leather and I had this kid tied up in ropes and I was beating the shit out of him with a flog. And my phone kept ringing and I had forgotten to turn it off, and it was my mother. So the director's cut. I'm like, I'm super sorry. I turned off the phone, finished the scene. I call my mom from the car and she tells me that my half brother called her and was drunk and screaming at her that they picked the wrong son because their son, his name is Lance Charger, and he's a gay porn actor, and he's fucking on the internet. My parents pretty much knew I was modeling and doing stuff, but that was a kind of a big blow for them. And he told them, Google Lance Charger. So I thought, oh fuck, I better do that so that I know what's going to happen if they do Google me. And it was a lot. So there's no question what it is that I do for a living when you Google Lance Charger. So
do people recognize you?
I've had a few people in my neighborhood when I'm walking the dog honk their horn and yell, Lance, Lance, out the window. So random. But I can go to like the Abbey where I'm surrounded by 1,000 gay guys from West Hollywood, and no, nobody ever comes up and says anything to me. So
okay. Do you travel a lot because this job?
I do. The same places pretty much. So I work a lot for a studio in Minneapolis called Carnal Media. So back and forth with them, definitely in and out of Palm Springs quite a bit. And then I've had a couple escort jobs taking me to areas like Pittsburgh. I was in Cleveland, never out of the United States. I have an appearance I'm doing in Texas next month. I came into this business when the whole country was closed.
Yeah.
So during that time when I was super hot and up and coming, there weren't opportunities for me to really travel and do studio work and do appearances and stuff. So it's interesting as they start to trickle in.
Is there a reason why you're in more than one fan page? Do you think it's beneficial for you?
Well, I only had OnlyFans in the beginning. People kept pressuring me to do just for fans as well. It didn't make sense for me because I didn't want to dilute the audience, but I did. And I made the page mirror OnlyFans. I mean, just for fans is always about 1/3 of my OnlyFans audience. But with everything happening with OnlyFans right now, it's frightening. I'm so glad that I didn't just have my content there. I learned when my Twitter feed was suspended, I had about 98,000 followers. And in an instant, Twitter deleted me and said I was basically banned for life. Let's say 500 followers on OnlyFans, and OnlyFans decides to shut down. You're not going to get all 500 of those people going to another platform. So there's always a huge kind of popularity and recognition loss when something like that happens. You know, in the beginning, I did not want to have more than one. I was worried it would dilute. In retrospect, I'm so happy that I did it.
Do you ever think about what you leave for your future people? I'm sorry, but it's definitely.
I do. You know, I have a couple of friends who are going through some really rough times right now. They were in corporate, like I was. They decided to do porn. One of them has decided he's just done with it and doesn't want to do it anymore. And he's really, really having a hard time finding a job. And a couple of the employers have told him, we know who you are. Like it's easy to do a background check in social media, you know? So somebody looked through my Facebook, saw Salty Silver Fox, went there, saw those photos and discovered who Lance was. It's a pretty easy 3-step process to figure out what I do. And I do worry. I mean, I really do worry that is going to be an issue when I decide to go back to work. So.
But on this, do you think that porn actors have like an expiration date, something like that?
I think there's way too many contributing factors to be able to answer that question easily. I don't think people age out of this business, especially in the era of the daddy. People can be a certain age and take amazing care of themselves and perform really well, and people are going to want to see it no matter what. Plus, the internet has taught me that there's an audience for everything. There isn't a body type or a kink or anything that doesn't have a big audience out there that wants to see that. So there's a lot more room for players to be in the mix now. I don't think people expire. You would have to do something pretty drastic to have huge audiences just not want to watch you anymore.
Someone new want to approach the sex industry. Any suggestion or something that it's better to avoid? Or
I get a lot of people from overseas asking me if I can help them get into the industry. That's really something you need to do on your own. What I recommend is start a Twitter feed, posting, and try to post at least once a day, especially when you're new. People want to see you regularly over and over and over and see what you have to offer. So content right now, it's all about feeding that beast. Film as much fan content as you can with as many different types of diverse models and kinks and sexual scenarios as you can, because you want people to see that you have a range, unless you're very specific. Like if you're a 21-year-old white twink who only takes giant black dicks and that's your whole thing, then that's your brand. But not everybody has something that specific. Show the world that you're diverse. Show them what you can do in different situations. My other piece of advice is start going to the websites of the studios and filling out their model applications, and then find them on social media and DM them. Be seen. Let people know you're there. Don't be timid and don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and let people know how interested you are. You know, if you catch somebody at the right moment and you're like, I love your direction, I love your work, I'm such a huge fan, chances are people are going to give it to you.
Do you think porn could have bad effect on society? You put on stage very sexy man and put some like higher standard because of this, because people tend to see just those and say, oh wow, I will never reach that level.
I was that kid. It didn't affect me in a negative way. It didn't give me unrealistic expectations. It just gave me like, I wish one day I could be that. I also would never want to use the word bad or negative effects or anything like that, because I don't think that's really it. I think people need to remember that when you're shooting studio scenes, a lot goes into that scene. Dicks go up and down and up and down and up and down, but in a scene for 40 minutes, they're hard the whole time. Sometimes people don't come, and so you're pumping fake cum into someone's butt and having them squeeze it out. Like, shit happens on a scene, and it gets edited really beautifully and put together, and that's for entertainment value, and I support that 1,000%. And that's what I love about fan content. It's a more realistic view in some cases. You know, the guys will like make jokes with each other while they're fucking. Shit happens when you're filming, and it doesn't get always edited out, because people who are doing fan content want it to be authentic, and they want to keep those things in because they know the fans love it. I don't think the porn industry should change anything. I definitely don't think they should have to do any kind of disclaimer at the beginning. I think it's the responsibility of people to know what's real and what isn't, and not hold themselves up to unattainable goals and ridiculously high standards that may not actually exist in real life.
Before closing, what we can expect from your content in the future?
I've taken some time off. I need to start filming more fan content. I haven't been doing a lot of that lately. I'm starting to make a little bit of a roadmap for myself of the people who I want to film with. I'm definitely leaning most of my efforts toward just for fans right now, because with OnlyFans, they have so many restrictions on what you can and can't do in content. But I do have a project that I started about a month ago and will be working on until the spring. And I think it will launch in the spring, that I'm crazy excited about. I'm hoping that it turns out as great as I think it's going to turn out. And everybody will get to see it in the spring. So
that's great. Thank you a lot, Lance, to be my guest.
Thank you. I'm flattered that you asked.
Have a great day.